Welcome to Oops, I'm Evolving. I'm Morgan, and this is the podcast where we take those big, mind-blowing spiritual concepts and break them down into the real life shit you can actually use. Because let's be honest, real growth doesn't happen in the highlight reel. It happens in the shadows, in the messy, uncomfortable WTF moments. So let's talk about it, air it all out, and level up. Hey. Welcome back to Oops, I'm Evolving. I'm excited to have you back here. And today we are diving into something that's sneaky and something that trips us all up when we're growing. Bum-ba-da-dum! It is resistance. We usually think that resistance means no because we've kind of told ourselves and we've kind of been taught that through manifestation and everything else that everything that is meant for us is meant to be easy, right? If it's too hard, it probably just wasn't meant for us. If we had to fight for it, if we had to really, really work hard. It's interesting because we have like kind of a combination dynamic here where we feel like we have to work really hard for money, but everything else should just come easy to us. And, especially like when we're pushing ourselves to grow and develop, it should just be easy, right? But sometimes resistance is actually this green light. Sometimes resistance is actually telling us like, yes, keep going, keep pushing. This is a thing that you're being asked to move through so that you can level up. But very rarely do we actually see it that way. But usually we can look back on that period of life and we can say, oh, that was just something I had to work through. But typically when we're in it, we are telling ourselves that it's too hard and we should give up. So in this episode, we're going to talk about how to spot resistance, how to know whether it's fear or misalignment, and then how to move through it without completely blowing your whole life up. So let's get into it. So a few weeks ago, I was invited to be a speaker at a hormone event. And my thought process, well, first of all, I gotta say, I don't know that I stopped and checked in with my body to see if this was in alignment with me. I really think I pulled a old Morgan and just blacked out and was like, yes, I can do anything that anyone wants from me. But at first, when I was presented with the idea, I was excited about it. And I did think that it was a great opportunity. And it was something that had me curious. But as the event got closer, I found myself doing everything under the sun so that I could avoid the fact that this thing was even happening. And as this got closer, I really was like, this event is not for me. This event is about hormones. It doesn't have anything to do with what I do. I completely had made myself like the victim in this story. And it's so crazy because I was still grateful to be a part of this event and to be getting that exposure, but I had really told myself a bunch of stories. I was spinning those stories so fucking hard. I was telling myself that nobody there is going to care what I have to say. They are there to learn about their hormones and that's it. And they're not going to care. They're not going to care what little old Morgan has to say. I started being like, oh, they're not going to accept me. They're there for a biology-based event, and I'm going to be the weird one out here talking about intuition. How am I going to stay authentic to myself but not be this weird outcast? Because I'd already promised myself that if I did this event, which I'd signed up, there was no backing out of it. So if I did this event, I was going to do an authentic speech. It was going to be authentically me. But that promise that I had made myself had me crashing out big time. So then we step into the next phase of life, and I'm feeling shameful because I feel like I should be grateful for being asked to be at this event. I'm also feeling shameful about the way I was being so negative in my brain about it. I was experiencing a lot of self-doubt because I was fearful of how I was going to be received. And then, of course, I felt isolated because I wasn't about to tell everybody these stories that I'm spinning about this opportunity. Because if I had been truthful, if I had told rational people the stories that I had been spinning, and by the way, I didn't even fully recognize that it was happening. This is what can happen so often, is that when we're spinning stories in our brain, it's like their background noise. We don't recognize that that's what we're actually telling ourselves until we shine a spotlight on that background noise. Otherwise, it's just like kind of running on autopilot in the back of our brain, and we have to consciously pay attention to what those stories are so that we can start to counteract them. So anyways, if I would have told people what those stories were that were running in the back of my mind, they would have told me I was being stupid. They would have told me I was being crazy because the things that I was telling myself didn't even make sense. So for example, when I sat down to write my speech, I was having a really difficult time. I had procrastinated it all the way until the day of the speech. The morning of the speech, I was like, okay, I cannot procrastinate this any longer. I have to sit down and do it. But I remember the days leading up to that day of writing my speech. One of the stories that I had been telling myself is, what am I even going to talk about? What do I even have to say? I don't even have anything to say. How am I going to bridge hormones and anything that I have to talk to people about? And I just want to say, I don't think anybody has ever known me and thought, she doesn't have anything to say about that. One thing about me is I always have something to say. I always have something to say. Sorry, sometimes it's not a positive trait, but Morgan's always got something to say. So the fact that I'm sitting here going, what am I even going to say? I don't even have anything to share. Which, now that I'm saying this is what I've been telling myself about social media too. So interesting that I'm also experiencing some resistance there. Because if you've noticed, I've not been active. So anyways, I'm sitting here and I'm struggling with this. And I called my mom and I literally said to her, okay, I know I'm experiencing resistance. I just need to work through it. I just need to talk about it. And I just laid it all out. I spilled it all out to her, which, by the way, once again, a community, people that you can reach out to that know you, or that they don't even have to know you, but they get this, they get working through this. It's such a big deal, because had I had to explain to my mom limiting beliefs and what resistance is, it would have been really difficult. Thankfully, I didn't have to explain any of that to her. I was just able to say hey, I got to work through this. And of course, I noticed that it truly wasn't, the feelings and the resistance that I was experiencing truly wasn't even about that event. Had nothing to do with that event at all. It was strictly that I was fearful of being seen differently, because I had told myself that I had to show up authentically. And then I thought, well, that shouldn't be difficult for me to show up authentically, because I've already come out of the closet. I've already shown up on social media. I've already done it on my podcast. I've already, hosted events and I've shown up. But the difference was that none of these people already drank the Kool-Aid. They weren't coming there to learn about human design or self-love, limiting beliefs, anything like that. That's not what they were there for. They were there to learn about hormones. and I was just a guest speaker. So that added dynamic really was interesting for me, and it had me being completely pushed out of my comfort zone. And then I asked myself, like, how many times have I gone to, say, a concert, or if you've been to like any kind of presentations or lectures or anything like that? Maybe you're there to see the headliner, but what is the person that like warms up the audience? The person that performs before the headliner. Anyways, the opening act. All of a sudden you realize like you loved the opening act. The opening act was better than the headliner. Now I'm not saying I was better than the hormone coach, but what it did open up to me was that they might not be there because they drink the Kool-Aid. They might not be there because they want to see me or they specifically want to learn more from anything in my world. But holy man, do I have the capacity to open a brand new door for these people, and something that they may never have even thought about or explored, because I showed up authentically and with love, just sharing a message to people who maybe might want to receive it, even though they didn't know that they needed to receive it. That was a huge aha moment for me. It was then that I was like, okay, this is my message that I'm going to share. This is true and authentic to who I am and what it is I teach and what it is I do. And I'm really excited about it. I got to start getting excited about it because my speech was written. I was fully embracing everything that I had to say. And I got to step into a different version of myself with the idea that maybe I get to help other people step into a different version of them. Once I named the resistance, I still felt it. I still felt that invisible barrier that I knew I had to trudge through and work my way through. It's like, you know that you're at the gym, you know you're going to have to lift something heavy. You're looking at the weights, you know it's going to be heavy, but you've already made it to the gym. So now you're like, okay, well, of course I'm going to lift this because like I've already made it to the gym, right? You already made it past the resistance. So once I named it, once I saw it for what it was, it really lost its power. And then I was able to move towards alignment with my speech. I was able to say, this is my message. This is who I am. This is what's in alignment with me. And I got to show up fully. And I gotta say, it felt so good. It was such a positive experience. By the time it was my turn up to speak, the main presenter had already spoke for over 45 minutes. So people were really kind of tired and it felt so good. I got to get up there. I got to make people giggle. I got to, of course I was too nervous to look at my speech notes. So I just completely winged it, but it's okay. It felt really good and it was really good. And there was a very positive response. For an event that I had completely dismissed. I got people were signing up for the wait list for the group chat, and people were coming up to me afterwards talking about how they loved my message and sharing with me their stories. And it was beautiful. It was such a fun and exciting night. And it really, really did open the door for maybe some speaking engagements in the future. I was so excited about it. So that's just my most recent story with resistance. We all have one. I'm sure you can reflect that back on a time where you've encountered resistance. And what it is it's just your nervous system freaking out over change. So as we know, our nervous system is there to protect us because our nervous system tells us in times of stress that we need to run from the tiger that's chasing us. Our nervous system still thinks that we are cavemen. So our nervous system goes, okay, I see that stress and we are going to start running from that fucking tiger so that we don't die. So even good change, even good stress can make us feel like we need to run from that tiger. And a lot of the time, that stress shows up for us the strongest right before a major breakthrough. When we're being asked to level up, when we're being pushed out of our comfort zone, when we're doing something that is scary, even in the best way, we're going to fucking panic before we do it because that's what our nervous system is causing us to do. So resistance can show up in a lot of different ways. It can show up as in like a procrastination, always putting it off, like me waiting till the day of to write your speech. It can show up as in doubt. What do I have to say? What is even my message? I'm not ready. Like, no way could I ever go up and speak. And it can even show up as like logical reasons as to why you should back out, as to why you shouldn't do it. You know, if you're even looking at, say, purchasing a home, you can find a lot of logical reasons as to maybe why purchasing that home isn't right for you. And that's kind of why we shouldn't always look at resistance as being a sign that something isn't in alignment with us. Another way is physical symptoms. You can get fatigue, you can be super tired, you can get sick, and then you can obviously just be extremely distracted and find any other thing to pay attention to except for this thing. And then you can have some random emotional flare-ups, like total crash out type stuff, picking a fight with your partner, crying a lot, just feeling completely emotionally overwhelmed. All of these are symptoms of our nervous system freaking out. It's like your body is slamming the brakes because it doesn't recognize the path that's in front of you. It doesn't recognize that that road is safe to travel on because you've never traveled on that road before. So your body is going to go like, nope, 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 we can't go down that. But really your eyes are like, okay, but look, it's a road and it's safe. We can go down it. But your body's like, we're keeping you safe. We're keeping you safe. We should only travel on roads that we've already traveled. That's what keeps us stuck and that's what keeps us small. So how do we tell if what we're experiencing is resistance or if it is true misalignment? So resistance or the fear of growth can feel a lot like this mixture of feelings. It can feel like you have butterflies and you're really nervous, but kind of what happened to me at the very beginning of this, there can still be a whisper of excitement underneath that butterflies, underneath those nerves. That's your intuition saying like, no, this is really good for you. Just push through, push this. I know it's going to be scary, but just push through it. And then thoughts like, what if I fail? What if I'm rejected? What if my message is not well received? Not, I hate this, right? When I was dealing with my resistance with this speaking engagement, it was never, I hate this, I don't want to do it. Well, I think I did say I don't want to do it, but it was never, I hate this. It was not even ever, I don't like speaking. It was, they're not there to hear me. They're going to think I'm this. I'm not going to be well received. That's more what it's going to be like. So another way to know that it's resistance is going to know that even like after you take a tiny action towards the thing, your fear lessens. So just like what happened to me when I wrote the speech, my fear almost completely went away. It completely ended. The resistance to the event ended. I mean, I know it was happening that night, but I was not dragging my feet to go. I was totally happy walking in. I was really happy when I started to see all of the people pouring into the room. The resistance was practically gone after I just made that fucking step of writing the speech. So you'll notice that when you're experiencing resistance, it's going to feel a lot less burdensome once you make the first step. And then what misalignment is going to feel like, and by the way, your human design can give you a lot more clues about what the difference is between resistance and misalignment for you. We can talk about what your specific decision maker is and how, if that's in alignment with you or not. Your human design literally will spell this out for you. So if you're wondering, look up your human design and then look up what your authority is, and then shoot me a DM on Instagram and I'll walk you through that. So misalignment will feel like you're dragging yourself through it. Misalignment's going to feel really heavy and like you're dreading it. So even after I wrote the speech, I would have been dreading going up to the venue. I would have been dreading the speech, all of that stuff, if I was really truly in misalignment. And another way that you'll know if it's not in alignment with you is you're going to feel your not self feeling. So if you are a generator or a manifesting generator, you're going to feel frustration. If you're a projector, you're going to feel bitter. If you are a reflector, you're going to be disappointed. And if you're a manifester, you're going to be angry. So those are feelings that you're going to feel when you're moving through this situation, even if you're not actively thinking about this specific thing that you're encountering, this specific project or whatever that you're encountering. You will feel those feelings because it's not going to be in alignment with you. So even if you're not thinking about those, you're still going to experience those feelings throughout your life. And then if you're experiencing no spark, no excitement whatsoever, and you're just experiencing the shoulds. And a lot of the times, what you're going to notice and what you're going to pay attention to is remember that life is truly, and it's so gross to say, but it's really truly about the journey, and it's about learning. So just like we expect our children to learn through situations in life, we have to remember that that's what we have to do as well. And so when you look back on situations, you'll be able to tell the difference about how you felt when it was resistance versus how you felt when it was actually not in alignment with you. So often when things aren't in alignment with us is when we can look back and we can be like, oh God, I knew I shouldn't have done that. Then pinpoint exactly how you were feeling, and you'll know then for the future when you feel like that. But you have to trust your body. You have to trust those feelings. Resistance will feel really scary, but resistance does feel alive. And I know that that seems really interesting, but just hang with me here. Misalignment feels really dead inside. Misalignment feels like there's no opportunity, there's no forward motion, there's no sunset, there's no horizon that you're looking at. Misalignment feels like you just walked into a brick wall, whereas resistance, it's like you can see that beautiful sunset. It's just way out there and you don't know how you're going to get there, and you might feel really grumbly and have told yourself a lot of stories about how you're going to get there. So when you're moving through this resistance, one huge thing that I encourage you to do and really helped me was straight up say, I'm experiencing resistance and it doesn't mean that I'm wrong. And then you can get out all of the stories that you've been telling yourself about that resistance. I'm serious. Like, write it all down. If you have to, do it in a journal, or if you have somebody that you know, you love, and you trust, and you know that they get this kind of thing, then you can work through it with them. But straight up just being like, I don't know why, but I'm experiencing a lot of resistance about this thing. And then get really curious with yourself. What is the worst thing that could happen if you did this thing? What is the best thing that could happen if you did this thing? And then why are you afraid of this thing? My step number 3 is, and I already mentioned this before, but take a tiny step towards the thing. So if you're experiencing resistance with a diet, resistance with a job, resistance with a job change, resistance with a relationship, whatever you're experiencing resistance in, do one tiny step. Okay, so if you're experiencing resistance at work and you have to email 30 people, but you're like, oh, I don't even know what I'm going to eat. I don't even know what I'm going to say, blah, blah, blah. Just write one person. Write one paragraph of the speech. Do one small action towards the thing. You've probably built this huge thing in your mind thinking that you need to like do it all or not do it at all, and that's just not the case. Make one small step. Even if you're experiencing resistance on something and you feel like you can't make a small step to it, research it for 10 minutes. Do a heavy deep dive for 10 minutes, because any kind of action towards this thing that you're feeling resistance on it's going to shrink your fear. Step number 4 is figure out a way that you can regulate your body. You can do this with EFT tapping. That's all within the group chat. You can do it with breath work. You can do it with nature. You can move your body. You can meditate. Do anything that will reset your nervous system so that your fear can't run the show anymore. And then the last step is check in for alignment. Does this feel expansive? That's it. If yes, then keep going. If you're still heavy, if it still feels heavy, if it still feels like maybe it's not right for you, maybe we just need to tweak your approach to it a little bit. You know, if I went into this speech and I didn't love the speech that I wrote, I still may have felt really heavy about what I was set to present. And all that meant was not necessarily that the event was out of alignment with me, but just that maybe I need to tweak how I'm viewing things. Maybe I need to tweak my speech a little bit. Maybe I wasn't fully authentic within my speech or whatever it may be. So sometimes it's just you kind of opening your mind and looking at your approach to the situation and seeing if there's a way that you can tweak it so that it is fully in alignment with you. So just remember that if you're experiencing resistance, yay! It's proof that you're growing. That's all it is. It's actually a really great thing. Your next level should scare you. Your next level should push you to change and be a version of you that isn't what you're currently experiencing, because you've been comfy where you are. So the next step should be a little bit difficult so that you can grow. You're built to evolve. You're allowed to feel scared and still move towards what's meant for you. So your invitation for today is to take a second and ask yourself, where might resistance be hiding under the disguise of logic in your life? Where are you letting resistance stop you from moving forward strictly because of whatever you've told yourself in your mind? And then ask yourself if there's one small step that you can take towards that resistance.
All right, that's it for today's episode of Oops, I'm Evolving. Thanks for hanging out and diving into the messy, real shit with me. If you're loving the vibe, make sure to follow the podcast, leave a review, and find me on socials to keep the conversation going. Remember, growth isn't always pretty, but damn, it's worth it. Catch you next time.